defines the term wildlife as not being wild horses. That's kind of in a nutshell. It has, let's see, was this one approved in the committee, or did we take, yes?
No,
We didn't take any
we
action.
didn't take this in. Just so you know, the
Okay.
definition they use for wildlife is straight out of our NRS.
Right.
So
And understand, there's a definition of wild horses and burros in the Wild Horse and Burro Act. So I think it's meant to kind of track with that. So it's a question as to whether or not you support the idea of providing that wildlife definition in this bill. My recommendation would be to support AB 329.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion by Commissioner Capurro, second by Commissioner Wallace, and several other people. We'll stick with those two. To vote yes on AB 329. The Vice Chairman stepped out of the room, but I don't think he'll be too upset if we go ahead. Any further discussion on this? Down in Las Vegas, do we have any discussion on AB 329?
Yeah, I do have a question. I was wondering if anybody was at the committee meeting, if there was any discussion as to where this left the wild horses. What was going to be their status under the Nevada water law with respect to these applications that the BLM has been filing?
Welcome back, Kim. Glad you didn't go far.
sure, Kim Jolly. Jason King, the water engineer, testified. That was a very long hearing, and I was watching another hearing. However, he did, from our deliberations, the director and deputies and I, the water engineer said that if it's passed, then he will no longer use the wild horses as wildlife in his application of water law. So that's positive in favor of the bill, I guess. But they were neutral. They had pros and cons. I have not been able to get those from their agency.
Was there any discussion of where that left the horses?
The legal counsel for that committee and the policy analysts stated, regardless of what state law says, there's a federal law protecting wild horses, and they would still have water, but the author's intent was to make that an adjudicated right rather than on the Nevada law that wild horses are wildlife. So I can't answer any more than that on that part of it. Maybe we can get back to you, but
I absolutely support the bill. I actually would even like to see it go further. But anyway, I think there's going to be some open issues here on this, and it'd be interesting to see where it ends up. But I do support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, Kim Jolly's last statement there is probably the best, most concise explanation that I've heard with respect to how it deals with the issue of wild horses. They will, under federal law, have access to water. You're not going to cut them off from water. What it's doing is they can't use that in the application process for water rights to be used. And that, congratulations, Kim, that was an excellent.
Wildlife is a beneficial use,
Yes.
show beneficial use. So they're using wildlife as a guise to establish water exclusively for horses. Our concern is that wild horses are not wildlife because they're domesticated. If you go back to the Wildlife Society's definition, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't provide water to them, but if you're going to build wildlife water, let's build it for wildlife and then provide water to horses. So that's kind of where we're going with it. So.
Precisely supporting what the Federal Horse Committee was discussing. All right. So, there we are. Everybody, okay, yes. You voted no, yes already.
No, I just wanted to comment that I did get many letters about killing our horses, not giving any water, and so I think there's a big misconception out there of the public, just what we're doing, but they're saying, I got a lot of emails oppose this, and mainly from back east. And I guess before somebody can go for water rights, they've got to guarantee they can give horses water.
One of our major concerns is that areas that do not have horses, that water for horses would be developed under the guise of wildlife, and that would be a new location to build horse herds under the wildlife definition. So, well, that's not a good thing. We wanted AML.
That could create a new wild horse management area.
Correct.
All right. So, everybody understands the motion on the floor to approve AB 329. All in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Let's move on to AB 347.
I believe that bill is dead, given the information that we have to work with. However, there obviously is not time enough to work on it, even if it had merit, and we could develop merit. So if there is concern about the potential of it passing in the form that it is, I would move that we oppose Senate Assembly Bill 347 as written.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion second to oppose AB 347 as written, and it's going to a few of this discussion on that is to some degree, whether that's huge or small, due to the lack of discussion on how that would be arranged. I mean, this would appear to be one of those things that if it was passed and there was a statement in there that said something about the Wildlife Commission will determine how those tags are given out, then it would be a workable deal because we'd come up with some regulation and some even methodology for spreading them throughout the state.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that Corey Lytle gave some excellent explanation on behalf of himself and his cab relative to this very bill.
Yeah, you did.
And if it were to move forward, I think you would have to utilize that sort of concept.
So, just throwing out here, so we want to just oppose it completely, or do we want to talk about the concept any?
I think we oppose it as written.
As written. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to oppose AB 347 as currently written, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, let's move on to 403.
Mr. Chairman, this is the one that we were talking about with respect to the adoption of the permanent regulation, and in this specific case, it's the bear regulation that was adopted. If my understanding, and I defer to Ms. Jolly because she really is the expert in this, that we would have to adopt as a permanent regulation by November. There's a November 11th date or something like that in there. The bear regulation that we adopted, that it would not have to be submitted to the Legislative Commission before it becomes a regulation. And I would move that we support AB 403.
It's been properly moved to support AB 403. Any further discussion? Las Vegas? No?
No further discussion.
Further discussion here? We've talked about some before. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Motion, all opposed? Motion passes 7-0, supporting AB 403. AB 503, conservation fee. We talked about this before, but
Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether anybody from, did you want to report on what Mel Belding's correspondence was, or,
503?
yes.
All right. A request here for, hey, you eating that without sharing?
Yes, I did.
All right. We'll be having lunch here shortly, so,
What on this agenda are you interested in here?
yeah.
Darrell Harwell, Washoe County Cab. At our meeting, Mail Building noted that this type of legislation proposal must be opposed in a consistent manner similar to opposing expressions on that's, what did he say about 503? He's opposed of it, he was. My notes don't have it. I just have it in the 322 of Mail Building. I think it's in public comment. But to your recommendation, we do have Mail Building opposing 503 as with the
There was some really good wording in there for the explanation as to why.
I have his
letter.
submission, the letter.
Could you just summarize that, Mr.?
Yeah.
You want it read?
Well, if you can give it, who's most familiar with that letter?
You read it. I read it.
All right. Since this has been provided by the commission as being a
I
wonderful
think it is-
thing,
I think it is,
We don't need to reread this.
if you can summarize it for us.
I think it is
He
important.
basically says the bill is bad at this time because we're going to increase fees on a segment who is economically is struggling right now. We are adding just more fees to our sportsmen. Also, he was against this because we're going to create fees for other user groups to use these properties. And when they start using these properties, they're going to have a right to sit at that table and make demands of how certain areas are going to be used. A situation would be Stillwater. Certain parts of the Stillwater Wildlife Refuge, you cannot duck hunt in. They're set aside to watch birds, and that's it. And that was his fear. We would be better off to take those state areas like Stillwater Wildlife Refuge, other areas like that, the Carson Pasture, and charge a day use fee rather than make people get a license. Also, there's no way to enforce this. When the Department of Wildlife is not going to have a parking ticket cop out there running loose. I mean, that is basically what you'd be doing. They can't afford it. There's bigger issues for this department than that. And that is the gist of this.
We need to be looking for poachers, not jaywalkers.
Rather have that poacher, 30, 40, 50,000 civil penalty is a nice chunk of change.
Don't need to worry about the jaywalkers. Okay.
Do you want this for the record?
Yeah, let's submit that as a portion of the record. He had some excellent points there. Go ahead, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'll direct this to the Legislative Committee Chairman. In the bill, it says each year not more than 25% of the money in the Wildlife Obligated Reserve account may be used to monitor wildlife and its habitat. Did that get changed?
I forgot to mention that. Yes, Kim Jolly. That was amended this week, probably Thursday, to 18% instead of 25. So it's all the money from habitat conservation fee currently goes into the obligated reserve account. That will still occur. In addition to what we use it for now, the language says that it can be used for monitoring up to 18%. So only up to 18% of that fee, not the whole account, the habitat conservation fee could be used for monitoring related to projects. So that it was just a change that from what I understand, the Wildlife Coalition met with the authors, and they agreed to the concept and even the increases in the fees, but they didn't like the 25%. They thought that was too high.
And also, at the hearing, and at Wash County meeting, Mel Belding said that with his kids, it cost him to put in, I think he said $135, and he couldn't afford to put in for all 4 of his kids. So there's going to be an economic problem with a lot of people, hunters out there. They're not going to be able to afford to put all their kids in, because I think he gave us a figure, $125, $135 it's costing him, and that's why I'd be opposed to it, because there's a fee increase in there, and also the use of the fee would be used differently.
I forgot to mention the department is neutral on the fees again, but we support the expanded use of that fee. The current people already pay a $3 habitat conservation fee. It's restricted to how we can use it. So that's the only part of the language that we could support per the governor's office. Does that make sense?
Why would every upland game hunter then why are we mandating it to upland game hunters if we're going to change the use of it? Because this habitat fee was keyed on with the upland game, is that right? And if you're going to change the use of it, then you should make it arbitrary for the upland game.
Or make it a separate fee and a whole new thing and should be its own thing, yeah.
For the record, Deputy Director Patrick Cates. This isn't the upland game fee. That's a totally different fee. Habitat conservation fee is for habitat restoration projects in general. And the added use would allow survey work associated with those projects. If that clarifies.
And can you go over who pays that? Fishing licenses and hunting licenses that are annual.
Yes, yes, it's currently paid on annual hunting and fishing licenses. And the bill increases the fee by $2 for in-state and $7 for out-of-state. It also imposes it on temporary permits, like one-day permits, as well as that provision for the wildlife management areas.
The flexibility, Ken Mayer for the record, the flexibility in the language, right now we can do habitat work for sage grouse, but we can't do any of the survey work with that money. That's part and parcel of determining where we need to do the habitat work and what kind of work we really need to do. And it also doesn't provide for the monitoring of how successful those programs were, so we might be able to make modifications in future years. So that's what the flexibility language is about.
And what I'm looking at on this is, if we had so much money available in this that we couldn't efficiently utilize it, that'd be another issue. I mean, we want to expand the use of money. As it is, money's tight. This money is tight. Now you're going to expand the use of that certain pool of money. I don't know. It's just not a great concept. There's a lot of bad stuff against it. Mr. Belding's letter was superior in that. I mean, the use of it now is, I think we're as good as we're going to get.
If I could add one thing.
Go ahead.
There's a balance of, it's off the top of my head, but about $1.2 million. We collect $300,000 to $400,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that percentage, I think, worked out to something on the order of about, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so
$72,000.
$70,000 a year would be that portion of those fees. It's a fairly small piece, and we do have a few years worth of balance built up.
Well, yeah, but go back and look, what was the intent of the fee? What was it supposed to be used for?
Habitat restoration projects.
Okay, then we should use it for that. And we had the same thing with the application fee of $10. We had $3 million excess in it, and because of the special session, we took that money and we're diverting it, reallocating is a better word, to other programs. And so we're reallocating the habitat money from what the original purpose was. And so as written, I'd be opposed to it because the fee increase for sportsmen, and that's all I got to say.
Every day I hear habitat, 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 much of which I agree with. This is the money to do that work, a portion of that work with.
And the change would allow us to assess the success of those projects by doing surveys related to them.
Well, we have lots of other money we end up doing that with, so, but, we gotta do some work first and then work on assessing it. I mean, we got other money to do that with. Okay.
Mr.
Anyways,
Chairman, I'm going to
we've
leave
discussed this.
I'm going to leave it to somebody else to make the motion on this one.
Why?
That's because you.
That's the vice
Commissioner-
chairman's job.
Commissioner Howell had raised his hand.
I move we oppose the AB 503.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Howell, seconded by Commissioner Shrum to oppose 503. Everybody understand the motion? Understand it?
Can we discuss this more?
Yeah, everybody, you understand the motion in Las Vegas?
Yep.
Okay, discussion, Commissioner Cavan.
Well, I think there's good parts and bad parts to this bill. I'm not big on fee increases right now. And I'm also not big on transferring some money, reallocating money, whatever you want to call it. But I see a need for that, but I don't know why we're doing that at the legislative level, because we're restricted, correct? And then the fees at our wildlife management areas, that's in this bill too, correct? That's a whole nother issue, so I don't really have a solution to rewriting it or redoing it at this point, but not really I'm on the fence. I don't know where to go with this, to be honest with you.
Okay. Comments from Las Vegas? Discussion?
No comment.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was testified at the committee meeting that this is really not going to be enforceable at the wildlife management areas. The game wardens aren't going to be out there looking, and I don't know how we'd ever check to see if the non-consumptive users would ever pay a fee. There's no way they're going to be checking on them, and I think there's other ways to get the non-consumptive users, which they testified they wanted to be a part of it, fine, but there's got to be another way, because there's going to be no gate, no one's collecting fees, and the law enforcement says we're going after poachers. We're not going to be looking at these guys. They're going out to do bird watching, and then there was some concern that, like Stillwater, if they go to, say, Greenhead and say there's a certain species of non-game animal out at the west end of Stillwater, and we shouldn't allow hunting out there during that time, they'd want to propose banning hunting during a certain time for that non-consumptive bird user out there. But it's totally not enforceable, and if we think we're going to get conservation people or non-consumptive users to pay a fee and get it enforced, I don't think this is the way to do it. There's got to be another way to do it, and I think it's going to be totally ineffective, and I just don't like the increased fee for sportsmen.
The practicality of this, from the enforcement to the notifying the public that they're required to pay the fee, the guy from out of state showing up to just go out. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it would be extremely involved and is not covered in this bill. I mean, this would be the beginning of a huge nightmarish process. It'd need so many amendments. It'd take up a lot of pages. Anyways,
Question.
we have a motion, a second on the floor.
Question.
Oh. Everybody understand the motion? That is to oppose 503. All in favor of that motion to oppose 503, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the motion? Okay, motion passes 7-0. We stand unanimously opposed to AB 503. 525, and see, for everybody to figure since we've got a pile of stuff on the agenda, once we get done with the legislative items, we had a break for lunch and then come back. So 5:25.
We'll try to go through this as quickly as possible from here on, Mr. Chairman. AB 525 is the bill that creates the Wildlife Trust Fund, which I believe was mentioned by Mr. Cates at one time, and Mr. Mayor has talked about it at other times. That is the fund that would be for the purposes of receiving gifts, grants, donations, and endowments for the Department of Wildlife. And as I remember, the explanation of why the department wanted this was that there are people who don't want to give to a government, but will give to an endowment or a fund that isn't so directly tied to that agency. And, in the past, there was some discussion about setting up a separate nonprofit to handle this sort of thing. And I think Mr. Cates was the one that indicated that this was an easier way to do it. And although I don't have any heartburn with the concept, because this bill came up after our committee meeting, we did not take a position on it. However, it's been in the hands of everybody for discussion, and in looking at it, there's only one area that I think we should take a strong look at suggesting an amendment. By the way, the hearing on this is scheduled for Tuesday at 7:30 a.m. In Section 1, subsection 4, it reads, each year the director shall submit an itemized statement of the income and expenditures of the department from the Wildlife Trust Fund to the chief of the budget division of the Department of Administration, together with other submissions required of the department pursuant to NRS 353.210, and B, the legislature, if it is in session, or if the legislature is not in session, to the interim finance committee. I would suggest that there should also be a report made on the disposition of the revenues and the accumulation of the revenues to the Wildlife Commission relative to those submissions. And I would therefore ask that you consider a subsection C and add the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners on the same basis as the other ones. That's in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Capurro, seconded by Commissioner Schrum to approve AB 25.
525.
Did I say 525, if amended as he stated. Do we need to repeat that, or do you think
Yes.
you got it? Which is adding under section 1, subsection 4, adding a C, and add with Wildlife Commission, or Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners, as that subsection C. 4C, yes.
I got a question for the director.
Written by the governor's office. Excuse me?
I got a question. Now, why don't you submit this to the governor's budget office also?
This was drafted by the governor's office, so
Says the chief
Will
of the
this be
budget
included
division.
in the governor's budget,
non-executive budget. So,
not the executive budget?
it will, first of all, we won't need a 501c3 nonprofit, which is lots of problems with it. Patrick can explain how the model is with the cultural affairs. A person can donate to this fund. It can be dedicated exactly the way they want it dedicated, and that we're basically spending the money as directed, and then reporting to the budget office and the legislature on that. And then, of course, we provide the commission and the public with, those are all public documents. So
I think there's a lot of good reasons, too, to have it brought back to the commission, if for no other reason than none of them, amongst them being publicity. You want to get people to donate to something. When it's reported back and we talk about what the money,
That defies the purpose for which I think you're setting this up, is that there are people who do not want to have, number one, do not want to have that publicity,
But
Number
you know what's
two-
happening with the money.
But number two, won't make a donation if they think it's going to a governmental agency. All I'm saying is, I don't have heartburn with that. I think that we ought to have a specific provision in here that says that any money that's collected and any money that's expenditured should be reported to this commission.
Okay.
And I think that we talked about that. I really don't have any heartburn. If somebody wants to donate money to the department for a specific purpose, that's none of our business, as far as I'm concerned. But this is going to make so the governor can't raid this account
Correct.
because it's not shown in the governor's executive budget.
Correct.
I think that's the one purpose for this,
Correct.
where they can raid our other ones. And so will that jeopardize it if you make a report to the commission? Will that jeopardize that?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, this was based on language that Department of Cultural Affairs currently uses. They have these funds that are declared private funds. They're required under statute to make annual reports to IFC and the governor's office. They, when they adjust those budgets, they send that information to the budget office. It's very transparent. And because it's designated as private funds, off limits, that they can't.
You
can't
wouldn't have
touch
any
it.
opposition
And-
and going reporting it to the commission?
Not really. I don't think there's any harm in that. I think we didn't suggest that language initially because I didn't see it as necessary because we already report to the commission gifts. I mean, that's a standard report on every agenda item, most agendas, and I saw that continuing, and this would just be part of that report. But certainly no harm in saying you want the annual report sent to you too.
Mr. Cates, my concern is not so much with this current administration, but you're not going to be here forever, and this law is forever until it's changed. So if you had someone in at some point in the future that said, I don't want to report this to them, they're not obligated to do it, whether we would like to see it or not.
Yeah.
I think it's an innocuous provision, and we support I think everyone in this commission supports the concept as you explained it before. In fact, I think it's a very superior way to handle it to the 501c3 type of situation that was before you got here, was being discussed.
Right, and I would just add to that, just for people's general background, that Department of Cultural Affairs, Museums and History actually formed a 501c3 and let it lapse because they turned out they really
Don't
didn't
need
need it because they had this account. They really didn't need to keep up the.
Yeah. And I think that provision is definitely, that's for something that's beyond when all of us, well, except maybe Mr. Haskins, he's the only one that'd ever be around that long.
Yeah.
Everybody else will be long gone before, when that's for the future. It's for the far future of this commission. That's be gone. It'll be all new people. So that's what we really need to worry about it.
Thank you, Pat.
So thank you. All right, so everybody understand the motion? Understand it in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, I understand in Las Vegas.
Any further discussion from Las Vegas? Nothing there?
No, I support it. I think that donations and things that would be coming into this account are going to potentially have an impact on the department's budget. And since the commission has oversight of that budget, that I think this is it's perfectly reasonable for the commission to get this report and have it be a requirement.
Any further discussion before we vote on this? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Yes, as amended. Let's move on to 102. Has been heavily amended.
Yeah, it's Senate Bill 102. It's not really the bill that we set up because of the fee situation. And what's in there is they do give us the authority to regulate shed antlers, but then don't provide the funds for which, we could actually implement it very well. So it does provide for civil penalties for someone taking big game in a big game poaching situation. And it does leave it to the commission to deal with the regulatory portion of it. So for that reason, I'm going to somewhat reluctantly suggest that we support Senate Bill 102. We supported it before, and the commission did support it, but not in this form. And I think we ought to redo it at this point.
All right, I mean, we had a good summary on it before Kim gave us, any comments, discussion on this from, let's see, actually, we have a motion?
Motion to support Senate Bill 102 as amended.
And motion made by Commissioner Capurro, second by Vice Chairman to support 102 as amended. Las Vegas, do we have anything on this discussion before we proceed to vote?
No.
Any further discussion here in the room?
Just a comment.
Comment?
I'm not sure if they're updated on the newest language, but Carson City, White Pine, Eureka, and Clark supported it. Elko
Right.
was against.
Okay, and that would have, yeah.
And we spoke to Elko County after the fact. They were looking at a different bill.
Oh,
Hello.
Okay, that's been clarified. Any further discussion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Yes, so let's
Senate-
move on to 226.
Senate Bill 226 is really, as Kim has explained, I haven't seen the exact language, but has been turned into a resolution-type instrument, and we will receive a letter saying proceed. I have no particular heartburn with that. Fact of the matter is, we had offered to proceed, and that's why it had been sent to the Administrative Policy or Procedures Committee to deal with it, and any subsequent attempt to set a meeting was rejected by the sponsors of TrailSafe. So we're perfectly willing to address the issue that TrailSafe brought to us regarding trapping in the original and start the process at that point. So whether or no, I would say, let's leave it alone the way it is right now and not take any action on it.
All right, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, as chairman of the Procedures Committee, I have 3 emails from the proponents of this trapping bill requesting me to take it off my agenda. They didn't want me to have it on the agenda. I have it in writing, and I said I would put it in on the agenda as soon as they got all the parties together. We talked to her. I've talked to them many times. They haven't excluded department. They haven't excluded wildlife services and residents that wanted to trap on their own property. There were just too many loose ends. They never got together. And I have 3 emails where they said, do not have a hearing on it. And so I did not have a hearing on it. We're ready, willing, and able to have a hearing on it. If they would have got their stuff together, presented to my committee, I would have brought it forth to the commission. And because I was not opposed to the concept, but there's too many people had loose ends in it, had concerns with it. We had all the people that were the rodent control people say it's going to drive us out of business, and I'm not about to put anyone out of business till I make sure their concerns are addressed. They were never addressed, and so we are able to do that at our level, which I think it should be done at the commission level, and we're perfectly able to do it. And it wasn't our fault; it was their fault because they decided to go straight to the legislature, and they had a bill draft when they were still trying to get us to do a committee hearing. And I had, in a conversation with a proponent of the bill, she told me, I wish you would have approved it so we would have had a stepping stone to go to the legislature. So they were trying to use us as patsies, I think, all along. But we're perfectly willing to do it at our level, and I think at the department and the commission level is where it should be, not in the legislature. And so we'll probably, they're trying to let us take the fall for it, but, you know, I can document everything that they recommended we not have a hearing on it. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my motion would be to take no action on this and just see what comes out of it.
Take no action.
Yes.
Second.
There's motion second, take no action on SB 226. Any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that. I'm a little concerned about taking no action. If something else happens down the line, and this kind of resurrects itself again. And I'm not sure if it can at this point, given this committee. But I'd hate to see it come back up and us have not taken a position. I think we ought to take a position that we oppose the idea of the legislature dealing with these kind of issues, but we do support that it come back to the commission, something along those lines.
Mr. Chairman, I would have no trouble with that proposition as explained by Mr. Macbeth, and it would provide an escape valve or another manner in which to deal with this thing should it come back and we need to deal with it again. But his motion does make it plain that we want it back at the commission level.
All right. This motion is
Mr.
taking
Chairman.
no action, but that's not opposing or supporting the
I'm
bill.
withdrawing that motion, my motion.
Got to withdraw the second, too.
Mr. Chairman,
All right, we're withdrawing a motion. With motion withdrawn, second concurs to withdraw the motion. All right. We have no motion on the floor. All motions are withdrawn. Okay. Commissioner Schrum.
Mr. Chairman, just as an observation, if we'll go back into the minutes and read the minutes and read the emails, the commission acted honorably with Trail Safe. We asked them to do things, they didn't do it. The fault lies with Trail Safe and does not lie with the commission. We tried to work with those folks. And instead, they did what's commonly referred to as backdoored us to get what they wanted. Now, that's just an opinion, but all you have to do is read the minutes. It's right there in black and white, and we have emails to back up everything we say. That's it.
Thank you. All right. Waiting for motion on this SB 226.
Ask him.
Mike?
Mr. Macbeth, did you have a motion? 226. We kind of heard one sort of earlier, but if you,
Yeah, I would just state that is my motion.
Second.
all right. Now can you restate the motion?
Oh, boy.
It's got to be on the bill, though.
It's on we do what?
Basically, the
226?
motion is that we ought to take a position to oppose AB 226 as it was proposed.
Senate Bill 226.
As it was proposed, and even the subsequent amendments, we oppose, but that the resolution by I think it's the Senate Natural Resources Committee, is acceptable to the commission, and the commission does want it to come back to deal with it in the regulatory process.
I'll
All
second
right.
that motion.
All right. We already had a second, but I just want staff. I want Kim to get this down so that Kim can reread it, because. And
Okay, so I have oppose SB 226 as it was proposed.
and amend
And
it.
maybe the easiest way to do it, Kim, is to do that exactly as you said, and the next part would be, and to accept the resolution of the Senate Natural Resources Committee to send it back to the commission.
Okay, that's better.
I've seen the resolution, but I think that's what it is.
It must be a good resolution.
I think what Commissioner Macbeth said will cover when you say send it back to the commission, will cover whatever the amendment is, yeah. Because we still have to go to the other house, so.
All right. Can we restate can we have Kim restate the motion for us, what you got written down?
Oppose SB 226 and accept the resolution of the Senate Natural Resources Committee to send it back to the commission.
Is that correct, Mr. Macbeth?
That sounds good.
Okay. That was a motion by Commissioner Macbeth and seconded by, I believe, Commissioner Wallace. Everybody understand the motion? Now we repeated it a couple dozen times. Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, we've got 287, SB 287.
This was the issue that, as Kim indicated, that they wish that it actually should have been set forth as a, excuse me, as a resolution. Be that as it may, it looks like it will go through as a...
Can you speak up, please? It's hard to hear on the phone, or basically impossible.
I'm sorry. We're passing this around, and it's not easy. This would, I would suggest that we support Senate Bill 287, and we had at least two counties, Clark County and Carson City, support Senate Bill 287. Whether it should be a resolution or bill is immaterial, really, at this point in time. It's intended to make sure that that these wind farm projects don't interfere with wildlife. I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
One addition, I believe they took sage grouse out of the current language, and we'll be lobbying to put sage grouse back in.
Absolutely.
And I don't, it was the individual that got it taken out, I can't believe he did it, but, because he's a...
We're more concerned
Who
about the
did
sage
that?
grouse than anything else.
Sierra Club.
Who?
The Sierra Club.
Sierra Club representative.
Sierra Club.
And I need to talk to him to find out why.
Well, you know why. You can figure that out.
That seems fairly obvious, actually, when you think about the
Okay,
politics.
so I guess the motion should be to support SB 287 with the
As originally-
additional
As a resolution.
language to put in sage grouse, return sage grouse to the original. Bill.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to support SB 287 with including sage grouse in the species list. Everybody understand the motion? Comments on the motion? I don't hear anything from Vegas. I assume there is nothing. No comments here. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. AB 522 was one we'd added written on there. And since that wasn't in this,
SB?
it was
No,
AB.
and that's the one that Mr. Cavan wanted to discuss.
Mr. Cavan.
I don't know anything about it.
Tell me about A 522 again.
So on April 11th, this turned up again, and it's basically taking the question one bond language that was passed back in 2001, and it's just extending the date. And one thing, we worked out a lot of this language in the summer, and we thought this bill was dead because of the fees, or because of the bond issue, and it so we're amenable to all the language. We're kind of surprised it came up. It's just reauthorizing the question one bonds, and it's about $20 million that goes to NDOW. So
Wait, Ken Mayor, for the record, DCNR has lots of money left in their Q1 that they haven't spent, and without this extension in time, they wouldn't be able to continue to spend that. We have about $6 million left, 3 of which we have sold bonds for, 3 of that we have not. So this will give us added time to be able to utilize the full Q1.
So you're for it?
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, don't we have a problem in the fact that we haven't noticed it because I don't think we even have it in our,
I added it to the tracking list. The committee didn't take a position on it, but it was in my report.
is it in here?
It was added later, like SJR 12. It's on the web.
Oh, so it.
So
is-
it's just,
Yeah, we found out about it in the committee meeting.
Okay.
Give me the 20-second version of what would happen if it didn't happen, didn't pass, versus what would happen if it did pass. What would happen to that loot?
My understanding is that the $6 million that's left, we've spent 14.
Mm-hmm.
The $6 million left goes away.
Goes to,
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
You can't access it.
It
No more
expires.
taxes on
I
it?
just
or
wondered if
anything?
somebody's taking it, I mean, it
No,
sits in a
it's
bank
just-
account somewhere.
us
It
sweeten out
basically
some
is the
things.
authorization to sell bonds,
Yeah,
okay? And so that authorization would go away.
I was just trying to
So
figure out where it would go.
It just wouldn't sell the bonds, it would not be created.
Okay,
We have
gotcha.
authority.
Given
Gotcha,
that
gotcha, gotcha.
Given that
I'm
explanation,
following it.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we support AB 522.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Capurro, second by Commissioner Cavan, to support AB 522. Further discussion on the issue? I don't hear any. I hear none from Las Vegas, so I assume there is none. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0, supporting AB 522. Looks like we've got two bills left here. SB 359.
SB 359 looks innocuous when you read the summary. It says revises provisions relating to contracts with a governmental entity. What it is a new set of requirements in the situation where you would have a sole source contractor. And although I've heard other explanations, I still maintain that, as for instance in AB 322, that we have a sole source contractor. And that the provisions of Senate Bill 359 would apply. That's not a bad idea, quite frankly, if, in moving forward, because what it does require of them is to agree to a code of conduct requiring an independent contractor to disclose certain information relating to a contract. There are other provisions that some of them cannot exceed 2 years. Now, I have to tell you, there's about 3 different or 4 different iterations of this bill. They've had subcommittee action on it about 3 times. I'm not sure what the latest one is. But it's Senator Horsford's bill, the majority leader's bill in that, and I assume it'll come to the floor at some point in time. I think the concept is good because I have a concern about sole source contracts. They should be used by the state or anybody else very judiciously because there is the potential for misuse. And it's an admission that no one else but this particular outfit could perform this service without going to bid to find out if that's the case. My position has always been that if that's a concern, simply put it into the state bid process and let the thing fall out, because what'll happen is the one outfit that you think is the only one that can handle it is obviously going to bid on. And if there's nobody else that can do it, they won't. But at least you've honored the bid system that should be in place with the state of Nevada. And I would encourage us to support the provisions that I'm aware of at the present time in Senate Bill 359 regarding sole source contracts.
Department take a stand on it?
Nope.
No?
Nope. We're just watching it. It's one of those that all state agencies would be affected, so.
Second. Was that a motion?
Yes.
It's been properly moved and moved by Commissioner Capurro, seconded by Vice Chairman Lent, to support, SB 359.
In concept.
Well,
No, as written.
what he's referring to is the fact that there are about 3 different iterations. So until we see what the final one that hits the floor, I think concept probably would be best.
In
because
concept.
I've got a bill right here.
The concept isn't going to change.
But it's
Well,
been
that bill,
changed.
there have been several amendments proposed to that bill,
Yeah.
so, but the net core provisions of it on sole source will not change.
Maybe. This is the legislature.
You have little faith.
I have a lot of faith.
Anyway, support Senate Bill 359 in concept. How's that?
Okay, that was the motion, in concept. Everybody understand the motion? Any further discussion on the motion? I don't hear any on the phone. Therefore, all in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And SJR 12.
Now we're to one that we can all be very happy about, I would presume. And that is the Senate Joint Resolution 12, which is referred to as the wildlands. And I can't, where'd I miss it in here? You have it? Essentially, it was designed to impose the designation of certain wildlands, or public lands, as wildlands in Nevada, and urging the Secretary of Interior to rescind the order requiring that designation. In the meantime, Congress, when they adopted the new budget resolution with the $38 billion in savings, two senators, one from, I believe, Montana and the other from Idaho, put a rider in there that essentially eliminated the funding for the implementation of the Wildlands Initiative. So at this point in time, it's probably not necessary, but by the same token, I would, so that we're on record, I would like to move that we support Senate Joint Resolution 12.
Then properly moved by Commissioner Capurro, seconded by Commissioner Howell to approve SJR 12. Further discussion? Don't hear any on the phone, don't see any here in the room. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of SJR 12, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Let's break for lunch and then we'll come back. Let's see, it's now almost 1, so come back 2 o'clock. Everybody an hour?
2?
We'll reconvene at 2 o'clock.
We'll call back in at 2 o'clock from Vegas, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
You want to ride home?